Well, we're back
We're back.
for episode 2.
What are we going to talk about?
Now that we've acquired such fame and fortune.
Oh, yes.
We will I think we can just retire the show at this point. You know, I think we've done enough for the universe.
It was a short run.
I mean, first of all, we're sick, so, you know.
We
Well,
being me.
I'm a little bit coffee.
Oh, I see.
I don't know if I'm sick, but
Yeah, I don't know though.
you've been sick.
I've been sick.
Yeah.
You might have been sick. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and I just read a chapter and a half of The Hobbit, so my voice is not 100%.
Yeah.
So
I'm a little tired.
But the boys are enjoying the story.
Yes.
They're much more engaged with it than I thought they would be, actually.
I think they weren't so sure until the trolls, and then it was funny.
Yeah.
And so
Well, both Liam and Colin were feeling the cliffhanger at the end of chapter 1.
I don't remember where chapter 1 ended.
It was...
So was it with
Bilbo,
him running after them?
Well, it was Bilbo having slept and then having not woken up so early in the morning. And so he was late.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was just kind of funny.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where one chapter ended and the other began because I was up doing stuff.
Yeah. We took a bit of a pause.
What are we going to loosely talk about and then take millions of rabbit trails off of?
Well, I don't know. I think it would be interesting to talk about like things that made us feel like we had a sense of accomplishment earlier in life.
Yeah.
At different points.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be interesting. Just the different, like, you know, I got a job at a Burger King when I was in high school, and I only worked there for like a month or something, I think. But I remember working there and working on things like toasting the hamburger buns and working on the grill, trying to figure out how to, or I wasn't trying to figure it out. People showed me, but you know, loading the grill with the hamburgers and loading them frozen, which I didn't realize that's how that would work. I guess in my mind, I thought of the way we made burgers at home, where it was like meat that had been in the fridge and it was frozen and put into the grill. But you know, there was a winter, right? It was like during winter-ish time, and like I drove up in like really bad, like icy weather or something. And I was also new to driving, and I felt very accomplished by, you know, having a job and having trekked it out and not called in because of weather or whatever. You know, I don't know. It's just kind of funny.
That's funny. I think music might have been one of those things for me because I started taking voice lessons in high school, and that felt like a big thing because I liked singing. I enjoyed singing. And then I finally was like, oh, I can actually sing semi-decently now. So that was a big thing. Or singing in foreign languages, singing. And my range probably hits mezzo-soprano range. Like I could never really hit, like, I could get up to maybe like a G and it not sound horrible. But that felt like a big accomplishment to be in like a vocal contest at a college. That felt like a big thing. Just, yeah, that felt, gave me a sense of accomplishment, made me feel like I could actually do something. Or around violin. I had a teacher at the time who I don't know. He was amazing. I loved Mr. B, but he pushed me in ways that I wasn't comfortable with musically, and that made me more comfortable. If that makes any more sense, if that makes any sense, like my first music teacher, I started violin at 10, and I was like, I really knew nothing about reading music or how it worked, how any of that worked. But I had a semi decent ear, not like pitch perfect or anything. Like I didn't have perfect pitch, but I could pick out tunes and replicate them. And she kind of worked with that skill and taught me a lot of things that way. So I still wasn't fantastic at reading music. And then like early teens, I changed teachers again. And this teacher was probably more suited to teaching beginners. And so she didn't exactly know what to do with me. But every lesson, she would have me sight read new stuff. And so that was a really good stretching experience because I just wasn't used to sight reading things. I was used to working on one piece for months until it was perfected and then working on another piece. And that's just how that first teacher did it. You worked on pieces for fiddle competitions in the summer and you worked on another piece for the winter recital. And so you had like 2, maybe 3 pieces a year that you worked on for those sorts of things. So like sight reading stuff every single lesson was a good stretching experience. And then Mr. B, who was my last violin teacher, pushed me to read music, pushed my technique further and better, pushed me to improvise, pushed me to practice longer than I'd ever practiced before. He was just really good for that. But that gave me a sense of accomplishment. And I knew I was around violinists who were a lot better than me, just at church or friends. But still, knowing how hard I'd worked felt like an accomplishment, felt like I had actually tried something and not completely bombed at it. So that felt like an accomplishment, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, getting to those recitals, there was always a sense of accomplishment when you would finish when you would have the piece done and you'd get up in front of everybody and perform it. Mm-hmm. And if you did really well, it felt really good. If you didn't do it very well, then it was kind of a big letdown. But I remember we would work on pieces for recitals too, when I was doing cello. And I would be working on, whatever the piece was going to be for the recital. And oftentimes I didn't know what piece it was going to be for the recital, until, maybe a couple months before or something. Yeah. But he would pull out, a couple, 2, 3 different things. And he would play it on his cello a little bit and kind of ask me what do you like? Do you like this one? Do you like this one?
Yeah.
And kind of give me the option to pick a piece to learn. But then, Mr. Purpose, he would also have us do etudes and other, not I don't want to say busy work, but it was other pieces. Yeah. Whether they were exercises or just other pieces that we would also work on. So it wasn't just the one that was building up to the the recital.
Well, and I say that, but I'm sure there were some pieces that were scattered in, because we worked through the Suzuki books and stuff. And I know I didn't play every single piece in those for something, but there was always one big piece, whether it was in the Suzuki book or something she pulled from somewhere else, that was the recital piece that you worked on way more than everything else. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember when I was I don't remember if I was in high school or if it was earlier than high school, but I had got a book from the library called something like Making Your First Website or something like this. And the book was basically a step-by-step how-to for kids to make a website. And so, I'm reading this book and I'm very studious about it. And, it says, don't do anything different than what this book says. You're going to want to. You're going to want to deviate. You're going to want to do your own thing. But you can do that after you've finished this book. Like,
Yeah.
get through the book, and then you can do what you want. And so
That's so hard.
and so I took it. I was very diligent, and I followed it, and it had you do hello world instead of making your own message. You had to make it say hello world, and you had to do it this way and get it to load in a web browser, which I got it to do, and I was very excited. But going through that whole book, I just felt like I'm getting somewhere. Like I'm doing something. It's kind of fun. And I remember getting other books from the library on, I got one that was like this massive, like it felt like a 3-inch thick book. I don't know if it really was, but it felt like it was like this 3-inch massive tome. It was white and it had a big black bar in the middle of the book. And inside that was, I think it was in orange letters, and it said XHTML. And I read a decent chunk of that book. Or no, actually, sorry. The one I got from the library was like blue and yellow. This one was one that I think I either bought it or my parents bought it for me. Okay. And I just, the blue one I remember getting from the library, but I don't remember how much I actually dug into that one. Mm-hmm. But this other one, I remember I looked through it and studied it and figured out, like read through so much about what it was teaching me about XHTML, which, I felt very proud of as, a guy who didn't read much of anything to have this huge book that I'm interested in. Yeah. And, having gone through that earlier book about how to build a website, I felt very accomplished having put that together, and then, building other things after that. But that was exciting. It's just it was a different experience, with something that I'd never really done before.
Yeah. I guess something maybe similar to a project that I worked on, or projects that I worked on that felt like a big accomplishment, were sewing projects, because my mom had taught me some of the basics of sewing. My grandma had taught me basics of quilting. A lady at like church had taught me some more to build on. And I think in high school was the first time that I actually had a pattern and was trying to decode the mystery that is a sewing pattern with all of its weird phraseology and wording. And you're trying to decode, okay, well, which side of the pattern are they talking about, and which notch and what markings? And, oh, I forgot to mark this piece of fabric, so I have no idea where this is supposed to go. And just troubleshooting machine problems and that my mom couldn't help me with, or, was beyond what she had done before, was, I don't know, it was fun. And there was always that huge sense of accomplishment when you finished it completely, because there's this thing that you can wear, and it's like you can actually see what you've done. And it's a very tactile, which I'm a very tactile person, a very tactile and visual representation of the work you've put in. So that's kind of fun.
I made this thing.
I made a thing.
Well, and that's always fun. Like when you've made something like that and you're wearing it about, and somebody is like, "Oh, hey, I see this thing. Where did you get that?" And you're like, this. "Oh, so here's the secret. I made it. Yes. It was me all along."
And looking back, sometimes it's like, "Oh yes, that was very obvious that I had made that." No one was going to be fooled that this was a store-bought thing. But yeah, just fun to see those kinds of projects come to full fruition and have that finished product, whether it's something, like a website, or something you've sewn, or something you've made out of wood, or, anything like that. It's being able to hold the finished product or see it somewhere does feel like a big step in some ways, like in independence and growing up, because you've accomplished this on your own. Someone wasn't leaning over your shoulder telling you, okay, well, now do this and now do that.
Mm-hmm.
You found the resources on your own, or you were using knowledge that you had been given, like, okay, this is generally how to read a sewing pattern, but now you've got to decode this specific pattern yourself, or you've got to read a coding book. And I feel like I'm sure people from all walks of life experience this and go through it and can get good at it. But I feel like homeschooling in certain ways uniquely prepared me for things like this in high school years with projects with no guidance. And that could just be because I come from a homeschool perspective. And so I feel like it's that way. But just learning to read instructions on your own, read material on your own, and come away with, okay, this is what I've got to do now, and be able to decipher that, decode it, work with that, and put it together on your own is at least you're uniquely helped as a homeschooler in certain, I guess, depending on how your parents homeschool you. But if they hand you a book and say, go for it, I don't understand math, so you're going to have to figure this out on your own. Or I don't know much about history, but read the book and answer the questions. And so it gives you that added bit of, I can do things on my own and I have to do things on my own. And I feel like it definitely helped me be more of a self-starter, self-researcher, hunting around to find answers if I don't have them myself, which has been helpful in a lot of different areas of life.
Yeah, I think it seems like that's a skill that homeschoolers learn earlier than other people.
That could be.
And so I think like in college, for example, there's plenty of work to do that requires that you go off and figure something out, or that you go off and do it.
Yeah.
And so you are having to self-teach. Like, yes, you do have the professor up there, and he is actually teaching you something. And so there is that, but there's also a large part about, what needs to happen in order for you to graduate. That requires that you do a little bit of your own put in some of your own elbow grease, as it were.
Yeah.
And so I think, like, in college, there's an opportunity for people to learn that skill. And obviously there is as well in high school, but it's not quite, I don't think, to the level of college when it comes to that kind of thing. But when you're homeschooled, a lot of well, at least for us, right? So we had 7 kids. And when I was in high school, there were, 4 others below me who were needing more hand holding, right? And so my mom didn't have as much time to spend with everybody specifically. And also we had the books, we had the resources for mom to hand it to us and say, here, go learn this. And so we did do a lot of our own self-learning, but it does teach you the skills of being able to take something that's written in front of you and to take that and turn it into actions, and turn it into, here's the process to follow. Here's the steps that are involved, which sets you up really well for college. It sets you up really well for the rest of life. I mean, I just think about like my work, right? Like, we have so much stuff that is written down in processes and documents that we try to keep them up to date and try to keep them written and like outlined as to what needs to happen. And I feel like that's the sort of thing that I got a pretty good head start on.
It's just like reading those sorts of things, or finding them, or
reading them and writing them, right? So like if you're reading enough material that's, textbooks or how to, or, big reference guides on XHTML, then, that sets you up to when you see enough things like that, it helps you to be able to regurgitate it later, or regurgitate a similar format, knowing how to outline things because you've seen it done so many times before, and so on. So I think there's a lot of skills that you do learn. And it's not to say that nobody else learns these, right?
Yeah.
Like lots of other people learn these skills, but I think in a homeschooling setting, you do have a window of time where you're sort of thrown into that a little
Yeah.
earlier maybe than people may
Yeah.
like can think that you quote unquote should be, maybe
Yeah.
even. But I think that sets you up well for
Yeah.
success.
Well, and even outside of schoolwork, it goes back to, maybe we didn't touch on this in the last episode, but just like tech-free time and loving books and just having a lot of empty time that you can use to read whatever you want. And kids can do that no matter what their schooling is. They'll have niche interests or things they're fascinated by and can glean a bunch of information. But in some ways, homeschooling gives you time that you wouldn't have if you were in public or private school, because you're just done with your schoolwork quicker. It's you in your class. So there's no time fiddling around because Jimmy was standing on his head, or Dorothy didn't understand, or Mike needs the teacher to work through something with him, or you're waiting for everybody else to finish their page when you're already done. There's just you. So you get through your work and you're done. And you don't have to wait on anybody else. So you've got a lot more empty time that's not filled with going from class to class or going to recess or waiting on someone else who needs help. And there are other siblings that might need help, but it just is so much more time efficient. You have so much more free time. And so you have time to go bury your head in a book for 2 hours and learn everything there is to know about Volkswagen Beetles, like, or some whatever random thing you're interested in. And yeah, I don't know. You kind of learn that skill of getting information for yourself early. And in some ways, I'm glad that our boys don't have access to computers or the internet yet. So they have to go to books. And so you have to get that skill of reading your information to glean it and not just hearing sound bites and be like, oh, I know everything about this subject because I listened to a 20-minute podcast, or I watched a 1-hour video deep dive on something. It's like, well, I'm not sure how much I could come away with and actually regurgitate after sitting there and doing that. Part of that is the form it's coming in, and different people retain different things at different levels, depending on what the medium is. But yeah, it's just a skill that I feel is dying. One, reading levels are abysmal in the United States right now. The rate of children reading below their grade levels, which at a certain age, I don't think is a big deal. Like as a person who didn't read almost at all until like 4th or 5th grade, like there was just no reading acquisition that happened. My mom tried so many different methods and it didn't click till it clicked. And maybe I had dyslexia. I don't know. But I read fine now. I love to read. I'm not a fast reader, but it doesn't stop me from enjoying reading and gleaning a lot from it. But it's not just the younger grades that are struggling. It's up into high school where kids can't read a book through. Even into college, they just don't have the patience or don't have the skills needed to get through a book that sometimes is boring or doesn't interest them, or even is interesting, but they don't just have the attention span built in and the focus built in to be able to sit down with just a book and read it.
It's not a practiced discipline.
Because we live in such a world of sound bites and pinging and distractions. And I know that the boys will have to have one at some point, some sort of device to call people. They're going to need a cell phone if they have a job. But even then, I'm assuming if things stay the way they are right now, it'll probably be a dumb phone. And when they get out of our house or graduate high school or whatever, they can make their own decisions. But so much research about how horrible it is for youth, but for anyone, how addictive that medium is. We're just shooting ourselves in the foot by kind of falling back on AI can do everything for us. And these are wonderful tools, and they can be, but they're also not used as wonderful tools by the majority of the population. They're just killing our brain cells. And this rabbit trail, I'm not sure where it started or where I was going. But it started somewhere. Maybe with just being able to teach yourself things, being able to have the attention and focus needed to sit down and acquire information in a useful way.
Yeah. And we live in a time where people are bombarded by so many different things in life.
Yeah.
And there are people who have, legitimately very little available time to sit down and read something, but they do have time in a car driving to work, or they have, other minutes where there's a way for them to take in information via audio or some other medium where it's not actually sitting down and reading a physical book.
Yeah.
And so in those cases, things like audiobooks can be very helpful.
Yeah, for sure.
But again, like you were saying, there's a practice discipline to getting a physical book and reading through it.
And even audiobooks, if you can listen to them without zoning out and just kind of half listening to it, like it's background noise while you're doing other things.
If you're engaging with it.
Yeah. And I understand because I do listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I probably would glean more from the physical copy because you have to stop everything you're doing and just focus on this one thing. But it is also nice to be able to have somebody read to you.
Mm-hmm.
We do live in a very busy world, but we also make it busier than it needs to be.
I think that's one of the things that I like about reading the Bible, especially that way.
Yeah.
In a as a physical
form.
book, instead of scrolling it on your phone or listening to it in audio form.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have the option for a notification to pop up on the page. You don't have the distraction of, well, I'm just sitting here listening to it, so I'm going to be doing the dishes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like having it take up, basically all of your available energy in order to read it, because you have to hold it, you have to read it. You can't, like, there's nothing else that's going to pop in and distract you. Well, there could be if you have kids, but, or even if you don't, but, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit more, dedicated focus wise.
Yeah. Well, and all these things are nice tools. It can be nice to be able to sit and listen to the audio Bible. But it can also be distracting. And
it can be helpful to have it on your phone so you can quickly look something up if you need to or whatever.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times we fool ourselves by saying we're super busy. Like there are people who are legitimately very busy, like between kids and work and home life. There's not many minutes in the day. But I think a lot of people, if they took just one single day to do an experiment where they put their phone in a drawer and closed their computer and said, I'm not going to touch it all day. It's amazing how much time you find where you're just sitting thinking, oh, I need something to do. What could I do right now? Like, because it's so easy to pull out the phone when you're bored or when you have a minute. And we fill so much time. I don't think we realize how much time we fill between tasks with useless entertainment.
Whether that's games or watching videos or scrolling social media.
Checking your email for the 15th time that day, or looking at the weather app, or shopping for something you don't need, or there's just so many distractions on a device. And yeah, I sometimes think what it was like growing up with dial-up internet and the landline. And it's just like, yeah, it just didn't factor into life much. It was, if somebody called to talk to mom, or we got 30 minutes on dial-up, which was not enough time to do almost anything because it took so long. Or from Dish, when we lived out in the country, it took so long for the thing to dial up and dial in. And then anything you wanted to do took eons to load. A YouTube video was almost ridiculous wait times, to load the whole thing to watch like a 2-minute video. And so, yeah, it just didn't take up much mental space because it couldn't. Like, it didn't do much for you. Yeah, it's interesting to think of how our technology has changed how we live our lives.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that are built for the very purpose of capturing as much of your attention as possible.
Yeah.
Because the point is to use your attention and monetize that.
Well, it's easy to forget that we're the product. Like, we are what is being sold, our time, our interest. And so we are simply feeding different corporations monetary gains.
Speaking of which, this episode is brought to you by...
What do you want to bring it to?
This episode is brought to you by Driveways Incorporated. Do you need somewhere to put your car at night? Get a driveway. Thanks to Driveways for sponsoring this show.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
No, I yeah. There's so many different things, like even getting into things like web programming and stuff that, I find that stuff to be fun even now, right? Like I got into it when I was a lot younger. I still enjoy, putting things together, trying out different things. Right. I've written a few things for work, a few things for, hobby-ish purposes. It's just fun. I think, using that skill to make things, there's an element of fun to it. And so it's not that, me or you necessarily are saying that, technology and all these different areas is like, something we shouldn't have in any sense. But there's a it gets used and misused so often and so easily because these things are devised to they're crafted and devised with very specific intentions and very specific like purposes. There's a lot of thought and a lot of effort that goes into designing them to be the way they are, so that when you're not giving it much thought and not putting in much effort, it draws you in more and more and more. And so it's really interesting. There's a lot of thought and effort on one hand in order to keep you from putting a lot of thought and effort into it on the other hand, keeping you involved as much as possible. And I think, it's one of the things that it's one of these things that kind of irks me a little bit about things like Facebook Marketplace. Like, like the actual thing itself, I don't really have a problem with. It's the fact that it's coming from Facebook, and so it's yet another thing that like it really doesn't have anything to do with anything else that Facebook does, right? Like nothing else about what Facebook has. Facebook Marketplace doesn't make sense with the rest of the stuff, except for the fact that they want you to be spending more time within Facebook things. And it's like, Craigslist existed. There's eBay. There's other places for people to buy and sell things, but Facebook made it really easy. And it's integrated with all their stuff, and but with their whole business model being focused on advertising and, like you were saying, turning their users into the marketable product. I don't know. It's one of those things that rubs me the wrong way. Not that I have anything against using Facebook Marketplace itself per se. It's one of these things that
it
irks me a little bit.
Bothers you that they have the monopoly on it and that they're trying to fish you in to spend more and more time on their application.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Google does the same thing in many different ways,
Yeah.
using all their different things between Google search, Google AI stuff that summarizes other stuff that exists on the web,
Yeah.
but now it's all going through Google's AI summaries.
Yeah.
Every time you search something, YouTube, you've got Google Chrome, which dominates the market in terms of web browsers. Like we use Safari, but a lot of people use Google Chrome, especially if you're on Android or on a computer. And then like even things like Google Fiber is like,
Yeah.
all of these things Google's just swallowing up in Gmail and like all
Yeah.
these things. Google's just swallowing up so much. And again, this is one of those things that a few years ago, I kind of got this bee in my bonnet to like ditch as many Google services as I could from my life. So I don't use Gmail. I don't use Google search. I still use YouTube because there's not really a good replacement for that. There are other platforms, but
They don't have
they don't
as
really
much.
rival.
Yeah.
But I think YouTube is probably the only Google service that I use voluntarily.
Yeah.
I use a few at work because you can't get away from it. But yeah, in terms of personal use and what I'm doing at home, it's like I don't know. Like I don't like using Facebook things. I don't like using Google things, just because like I like the whole point of their business is to get as much of your attention as possible, and then sell that to people who want to market things.
I feel like we very seriously rabbit trailed
Oh yeah, well,
off of our accomplishments in youth
we have.
into dislike of social media and current technology.
Well, in order to not hate on technology too much more.
Well, I was just thinking about another. I think you were talking about how you still enjoy some of these things that made you feel accomplished in early adulthood, teen years, that span of lifetime. And it was making me think there are a lot of things that I thought were just a hobby, or, oh, okay, whatever. I do this and it's fun, but I probably won't do it forever. And in adulthood, they're now serving me well or allowing me to serve others. Like swimming lessons. It was fun as a kid. Initially it was terrifying, and then it was fun. And taking like the course one below lifeguarding skill lessons or whatever you would call it. It was like, this is fun, but I don't want to be a lifeguard. Like, I learned all these skills. That was great, but it's really hard to pull stuff off the bottom of the 9-foot pool. And I don't think I want to be doing that with a body. Like, I don't know if I could. That sounds really terrifying. Okay, maybe not a lifeguard. But now I'm teaching friends, kids swim lessons this year. And am I going to teach them to be Olympic swimmers? Absolutely not. But my hope is to be able to teach them how to get themselves out of dangerous situations, how to stay afloat, giving them more confidence in the water so that they can tackle harder swimming strokes and be able to progress further. And that gives me a sense of accomplishment as an adult, and also is utilizing a talent I learned in my youth that I thought was just kind of fun, and I wasn't going to use it for anything but my own enjoyment. The same with crocheting or sewing or baking. It's like all of these skills that were fun to learn, fun to teach myself, fun to be able to do, have become ways of serving others, which is something that is, I don't know, a blessing to me and hopefully a blessing to other people. But being able to enjoy it, and the skills that you worked on, whether it be like photography, videography, audiovisual, all these things that were hobbies or just fun, you've been able to serve either church or friends, family, and these things that did give us a sense of accomplishment, but maybe just felt like a passing, oh, this is just something for right now, have really become useful in our adult lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it shows partly how like your interests and your hobbies, shape the things that you get yourself into
Yes.
as you get further on.
The
So it's
things you
like,
either volunteer or are voluntold to do.
right, right. And it at the same time, it's not a separate thing from God controlling that trajectory either.
Yeah.
Like he got you interested in something, and in order for you to be able to use it later to either bless other people or to further your career or to, enhance, your home life or whatever it is,
Yeah.
like bringing you along and teaching you
Yeah.
what he's taught you through your life.
And that,
It
yeah.
builds and it comes to a point where, the way that you got to be the way that you are and equipped for what you're
Mm-hmm.
equipped for is because he brought you through all these different things and taught you through either various failures or various, interests or whatever it was to bring you to the point where you are now. And all of that's
Yeah.
very intentional.
And that none of these talents are self-generated. Like you didn't just decide one day to be a programmer of your own volition and just suddenly, oh, I'm great at this. And oh, I've got talent here. And I gave that to myself. Or I in my case, like I tend to be decent at baking, at making things gluten free or figuring things out in the kitchen.
More than just decent.
But I didn't come up with that. I didn't give myself that ability. God gave that ability and fostered it and gave me people around me who fostered it. And it's sometimes easy to just think of a talent as something you could throw away or something that doesn't need to be thought through very carefully. But then remembering who our talents come from and that we are to be stewards of these talents, that they're not a take it or leave it, whatever kind of thing. If God has given you a gifting in an area, maybe you should think a little bit harder about how you're using it or if you can use it instead of, oh yeah, I'm just good at that. Oh well, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I can either take it or leave it. I'm just going to put it over here in the pile of things I don't really want to do because I don't feel like it. Yeah. And not going after things that God hasn't given you talent in. It can be easy to think, well, this would get me more fame or this would get me more interest. Or maybe I could come up with some sort of following or some sort of fan base from doing this thing that God hasn't really given me a talent for. And there's probably a reason like that is not my talent. And maybe it would feed pride too much or what have you. But yeah, to take the talents we have been given and to see what we can do with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like the parable, right? Yeah. Like you have the talents you've been
the
given,
literal talent,
and you make the interest or whatever it was, and you don't just
bury it.
either don't bury it, which is kind of like I could take it or leave it. Like this isn't a talent that it's like, yes, I have a talent for such and such, but maybe I'll just put it on the back burner or whatever, or and not use it to benefit others and to grow the kingdom, honestly, like using it for serving the church in some form or function. There's almost, I mean, there are probably some talents that have more nebulous connections to church life.
Yeah.
But most things have some connection because you can use it to serve people. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be, a talent that is exercised on a Sunday morning in order for it to be useful in the church.
Yeah.
Like there are so many talents for all kinds of things that get used all throughout the week where you can benefit other people in the church and build up the body of Christ. And it's
in the church, in your home, which depending on who your family is part of the church.
Yeah. It's one of these things where, you're using the talents that God has given you, and you're as our pastor would say, you're blooming where you're planted. Like you've been given this spot and you're flourishing there because God has given you what he's given you to be where you are and to be who you are. And I think it's a beautiful thought, and it makes a life seem much more happy.
Yeah.
To realize that this is where I am because God
Yeah.
has put me here, and I can bloom.
And helps us have a grander vision for our talents. It's not something we're just holding to our chest and being like, this is my fun hobby, but having more of an open hand with them and saying, what can I do with this for your glory, for others' good? And I think it's easy to come up with hobbies that it can be sometimes embarrassing. If you think I'm maybe a little bit good at this, but I don't know if I want to put it out there because somebody else is better. Somebody else
will
is going to up
critique
it. Somebody's going to critique it. And not being in that carnal mind of this is about me. Like, if I'm not the best, I'm not going to do it. If I can't make the most beautiful painting, if I can't sketch the prettiest thing, if I can't crochet the best whatever, if my pie doesn't look nicer than XYZ person's, I'm not going to try at all. I'm not going to do it at all. And somehow thinking that a talent has to be you're the best at something, like you're better than everyone else. It's, and I won't share it until I know that I'm actually great.
I just think it's so cool. Like this past week, we had the talent share at church, where had a bunch of people come together and just show something that they did.
Yeah.
And it, you know, it's funny because you get up all in your head about it, and you're like, well, you know, it's not really that good. It's like, you know, we end up being our worst critics, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I could have done that so much better because this, or, you know, they're definitely not going to think that's great because of X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
But you show up, and at least for me, it's like I'm looking around at all these things that everybody else has done, and I'm like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Everybody else knows how to do cool stuff. And it's not a critique moment. It's just it's a cool moment to see what everybody's able to do and contribute, and
being able to rejoice in others and with others in the gifts that God has given them, and have them do the same for you is a sweet minute to share.
Yep. Yeah, it's just, and things you didn't realize that people did.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you do painting. I didn't know I don't know you could paint, or whatever it is. It's very, very interesting, and very cool to see how God has blessed people with skill and talent in so many different ways.
And just to look at someone else's art and it be kind of mind-boggling. Like, how on earth did they see that in their head? How on earth did they put those patterns together? How on earth did they draw all of this, pull all of their own mental resources into this beautiful thing, into this skillfully done thing? And I don't know, it's just really neat to see other people's abilities.
Yeah.
To realize what gifts God has given people.
To appreciate them.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a very neat thing.
I think all of this kind of brings my mind back to whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. And I'm probably somewhat misquoting that verse, but that whatever gifts God has given you, to do it with your whole heart, not to go at it halfways, and not to take it for granted, the talents he's given you, the gifts he's given you, but to attack the tasks and talents God's given us with our whole heart, and do it for the good of others as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, you know, a corollary to, you know, finding your talent, or not finding your talent, but, you know, using your talents, and maybe not necessarily going after trying to find other talents because, you know, well, that could either make me more money or that could do whatever. That doesn't mean, at the same time, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to push yourself
Yeah.
in different ways, right? Like there are going to be things in life that either we have to do, it's part of our work here on earth,
Mm-hmm.
or something maybe we don't find much interest in but needs to get done, or whatever. Like, and there's ways to develop skill in those areas and to be able to do things. Maybe we're not naturally bent toward it. Maybe we didn't, get into it as a hobby or find it as a talent or whatever it is. But there's going to be situations where we do have to push. We do have to put a little bit more effort into it.
Yeah.
It doesn't come naturally. We have to try. And so, just, I guess, don't hear us saying like, you can just you only do things that you
Only
feel
things
like you're
you're good
naturally
at,
talented
yes.
at. Cause that's not true. Like there's going to be stuff in life that you do have to get done and you aren't going to be naturally talented at.
Yeah.
If you're in a place where you can find someone who is more naturally talented at something and can help you out with it,
Yeah.
then that's, you can definitely ask them to help you with something.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily a, shirk all duties that you don't feel necessarily gifted toward.
Well, and this whole conversation is making me think of like helping children find their talents, and it very much fits into the Charlotte Mason's idea of a feast of ideas, laying out a feast of many, many different things. And she would say her feast was a huge range of beautiful topics: art, literature, music, poetry, mathematics, science, history, all of these subjects, and spreading a wide feast and letting children find what interests them and what they want to go deeper on, but giving them a wide range of options. And it kind of in a similar vein to spreading out life before your children and saying, look at all these amazing things there are that God has created to do in his world, whether it be making false teeth, or being a welder, or being a seamstress, being a gardener, being a computer engineer, being somebody in the food service industry. There are so many different things that God has created in this world to work and serve in, and not feeling like we're trying to steer them into the ones we want. Like we can direct them in ways that we think would benefit them and benefit a future family, but also not feeling like we're going to live our dreams through them. Like, I really wish I had been able to be an actress or a singer or a thing that would have brought me fame. That was a big thing in younger years, was like, what could I do that would get me out there and get me noticed in the age of like YouTube stars? And it's very easy to think, well, that would be the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Get them where their face is in front of people. And the more they grow and the more, by God's grace, I mature, it's like, well, I really actually wouldn't want them to face that struggle of being out in the world like that in front of a bunch of people. But with whatever God has for them, whatever it be, wherever their talents lie, I hope the Lord helps us to guide them wisely and lovingly, not trying to push them in areas that maybe he hasn't gifted them. It's like, and being a good student of their characters and gifts, so that we can discern what they actually are talented in, what they are good at, where their natural strengths and weaknesses lie, and building up the weaknesses and encouraging the strengths, so that they are well prepared for whatever God has for them.
I don't know if this is still current, but I remember a couple of years ago that it was one of the number one career choice desires of kids in school was to be a YouTuber.
Yes.
And I think there's a couple things, there's obviously they're watching a lot of people on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so that's what they want. People want to be what they see.
Yeah.
And they want to be like those that they respect and that they enjoy.
Well, and you see people who have enormous wealth, can buy anything they want, have tons of followers, have tons of accolades. They get to do cool things in life. They get to go cool places. And that's appealing.
Yeah. And I mean, so they see these people and they want to be like them. But it also, I think there's an element of it where it feels easier than getting a job. It's actually
you don't see the internal like
right
hours spent
people
working on stuff.
People who make their living doing YouTube will talk about how much work they put into doing it.
Yes,
but there's a sense in which it feels like, oh, I get to make videos about whatever I want. That sounds cool.
Mm-hmm.
I either just need to play Minecraft and screen record or whatever it is, and so they get this idea in their head that they can do this thing that feels way easier than like showing up for an
Your
8
9
hour
to 5,
8 hour shift somewhere, and putting in work that's like, oh, it's a job. I have to get a job and I don't like my job. And it's like there's kind of several things at play of we don't see as a society, and we don't value well, some people do, but work as a whole is not really something that people find to be this good thing.
Yeah.
It's like it's more seen as a necessary evil. It's like something I have to do. I have to show up. I need to get a paycheck in order to pay my rent. And so I have to do this job that I don't like. And it feels like this rat race because or a hamster wheel or whatever it is. It's like one thing is feeding into the next thing, which is feeding into the next thing. And the only reason I'm doing these things is to keep the next piece in this chain going. And it feels like an endless cycle of, meaninglessness.
Yeah.
And they feel like something like YouTube feels like an exit route where it's like, this is something that I could enjoy doing. This is something I could have fun at. It feels less like work.
Yeah.
And then you also end up with the other tangents of the hamster wheel that get dissected of things like, well, then we should have things like universal basic income and all this other stuff. And so there's a whole other side to this, but specifically on the side of, seeing YouTube and it being the number one, like, career aspiration by young people is just a really interesting time that we live in right now.
Yeah.
Because, I think you had times where there were people who were wanting to be actresses, wanting to be actors, wanting to be famous singers.
Yeah.
And that was, I feel like that was more in the time of, between, well, like when TV and radio came out and those were the most popular things. It was pre-internet.
Yeah.
And even some into the age of the internet. And to some extent, there are people who still have those aspirations. But for being a YouTuber specifically, to be the number one career thing that somebody wants to be is very unique. And it has this weird, I don't know, it feels like a weird anomaly because for so long it was, if you were going to be a quote unquote entertainer, like that meant something very different because the normal people were working on a farm or working in a factory, after industrialization, or, had, some kind of family business or something where it was passed down from father to son who taught him this skill. And like, the whole idea of what work looked like was so different. And now we're in this unique situation. I don't know if YouTube is still like the number one career choice or if it's like being a TikToker or something, but
media of some
kind,
an influencer is what.
Right. Well, an influencer, you get the your sponsor deals, and you've got your sponsors are paying for your lifestyle so that you can show it to the world. And I
think that's one of the reasons why we want to shelter the boys from that world for as long as we can. Like, not having them not even know that that exists as an option, and surrounding them with real men who do real jobs, who talk to them about their real jobs, who are excited about their real jobs, who are hard workers, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
And to have that be their role model in life, instead of someone on a screen who they have no relationship to, not starting out the weird parasocial relationships when kids have no idea even how to have a decent friendship in the real world. But to fill them up with real world interactions and real people doing real everyday work, and have that be the people they want to emulate, the people they pretend to be, the people that come up in their play and who they, like think their cars are cool, even though they're not Ferraris and everything, like people who are real people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a different life than what a lot of kids get, is they don't have a lot of adult interactions. So they don't know what real adults do, except maybe their parents, and they probably have a pretty nebulous view of what their parents do. And having that wide range of adults who can tell them about their job and them realize, oh, this is a thing you can do for work to make money. And that being their life. They don't know any different. And I don't know how long we'll be able to keep that innocence and that ignorance of the media world, but hopefully long enough so that they'll be old enough to have us explain to them how this other world works, why it's so alluring, why there's so much draw to it, why it sucks us in, and what real work is, what biblical work is, and what the purpose of work is for the Christian. And it's not just to make money and have followers and make a name for yourself. So it's like, yeah, who knows? They might be an entertainer of some sort. They might be famous, but I don't want them to even know that exists at this age. I don't want them to be chasing that.
It's an unrealistic goal
for most people,
for almost everybody, because in order to be a wildly successful entertainer,
mm-hmm.
like that means that there have to be lots of people who are watching you.
Yeah.
And by definition, it is a few number of people. And like even in the age of YouTube, where there's like, thousands and thousands, possibly even millions of people who make a living producing YouTube content.
Yeah.
Like it is an unusual thing, and to some extent, to have so many people who are doing it, but at the same time, it's also still a few number of people who are doing it. Yeah. And it's everything is so spread out. Everything is spread out more in that plane, but especially when you're talking with things like being a famous musician or being a movie star mm-hmm. or something, that's even harder to get to that level. Yeah. Or professional sports or something like that. It's like to be one of the 300 people in the world who are playing this sport right now, or whatever it is, at that professional level, or even if it's like several thousand people who are involved in that professional sport, like to be one of those people, you have to be insanely good at it.
Yeah.
And
not just insanely good, but insanely driven.
And
because there's probably a much larger pool of people who could and choose not to.
Yeah. But I think having a world of people around us where the things and goals in life are a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a healthier thing for your brain to look forward to.
Yeah.
Of saying like, oh, I can, work at a dentist's office,
Yeah.
or I can be a lumberjack, or, I can drive a truck and do metal work or
And
whatever.
it's like, and I don't know what these people's finances are like, what their income is like, and there are some people who are doing very well. It is obvious that they're doing well, but it's not flaunted. It's not used unwisely or extravagantly, and it's a simple life without a lot of flash and show.
Yeah. They're just demonstrating again to our children what reality is like. To some extent, the stars and influencers and whatnot, that's not real life a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Children who come out of families where their family was a YouTube family come out of it and say like, oh, life never felt real to some extent. Like, or that they feel like a piece of life got stolen from them, or that something that they missed out on. It's like, it felt off to be in a
and I
family.
haven't heard, maybe you've heard more than I have of like former YouTube kids. I haven't heard much because that's kind of a generation removed. Like they're just now coming of age, a lot of those kids. But I can see how having a camera in your face for all of your life's major events would be.
It puts a distance between you and your parents.
It would make it feel like it wasn't real.
Yeah.
Like it's put on somehow.
Have kind of that Truman Show sort of feel to it, where it's like, okay,
was this done for a video, or was it done because they love me? Was it done?
Why was my birthday party this way?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, you'd always be questioning what was actually going on.
What was the motivation?
Yeah, in any given situation.
Yeah, and I think having the opportunity for our boys to grow up in a fairly, like you said, living somewhat sheltered right now. And it's like, even now, like to a large extent, I live a sheltered life too, like even as an adult, because it's like, I don't have interest in watching many things or listening to many things.
Yeah.
And so from an outside perspective, it's like, I'm the sheltered guy, at work. And, if there's a question that starts with, hey, have you seen? My answer is probably going to be no. It's like, that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah.
And I don't mind that at this point. Like I've gotten used to that being the reality of where I'm at, and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
To some extent,
I don't feel like the need to go catch up on tons of shows or movies that you didn't see as a child or teen or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were a few pieces of media that my folks showed us once we got a little bit older, that they were like, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to watch Star Wars Episode 4 because you guys need to see this, because it's a huge thing in culture and society. Or whatever it was. And like, there's a few things that I have seen, and there's even some things I've seen on my own since then.
Yeah.
But like, at this point, I'm not necessarily seeking out movies to go see. Like, something new comes on, maybe I'll see a trailer. Most likely I won't.
Yeah.
And, I have a,
it feels
and I'm not saying everybody should be this way, but it's like, I don't have a sense that I feel like I need to go see everything, or see even many things, or even necessarily see what might be like the top 10 of all time is like, these are the movies you have to see. It's like, I don't feel like I have to. Like, I can be fine and live a great life to some extent, and not feel like I have to do that.
And I feel like I struggle with a little more FOMO in that area of like, what am I missing? But a lot of it too is we don't have a player that blocks stuff out, and a lot of movies have junk in them that I don't want to see. So
That's true.
it's like, okay, well, it could be a great storyline, but I'm not going to sit here and try to skip over these scenes that weren't necessary in any movie. So,
Well,
yeah.
and even if you have a movie that skips over, certain scenes, like a lot of movies that are put out have just a general undertone to the movie that is communicating something to you.
Yeah.
Like it's teaching you certain ways to think about things. It's giving you a message. It's giving you like its perspective. Like it's trying to
It has a worldview.
It has a worldview.
Yeah.
And even more than that, like it has a an aim. So
Yeah.
it's not just like, oh, this was our worldview and it kind of happened by accident. It's like a lot of things are crafted specifically with the goal of shaping, like,
Public thought on an issue.
public thought. Well, and filmmakers feature, fancy themselves artists, and in some ways they are.
Some ways they are. It depends on the
But artists love to do things that have a point,
Yeah.
or are trying to get at something. Whether they'll ever admit to it is a different question, because with oh, the art is whatever you want it to be. It's like, well, okay, but you were doing something here.
Yeah.
And especially when it comes to movies and telling stories, it's like they're trying to communicate something about how we think about our world.
Yeah.
And there's no filter that you can put on a movie
Yeah.
that will cut that kind of thing out.
Yeah.
And it's subtle, but it's like the way that we even argue for like what the value of humanity is. Like, how do we esteem each other? How do we esteem the unborn? How do we esteem the elderly? There are movies and there are shows that are put together that subtly or overtly, depending upon what it is, are eroding a healthy view of those things and a healthy understanding of the world around us. And they're trying to subvert it or trying to shift the general like cultural talking points on things.
Well, and we're created to be people of a story. We're put in God's story. He writes his story through our lives, through the world around us. And so we are living out a story. And every story we see has a bit of truth to it, but there can be also a lot of lies mixed in. The little shadows of the truth, but they can be mixed with a lot of falsehoods. And we respond very strongly to story because I think God's written that into us to be ones who react and resonate with stories. I think that's why TV shows that bring in something that used to be subversive or still is at the time, whether it's homosexuality, gay marriage, transgenderism, and they will write that into a storyline that makes you love these people. Which should we love people? Yes, absolutely, because they're created in God's image. But should we love their lifestyle? Should we love the sin that they're engaging in? No. And that's what lots of these stories do, is they subtly twist it and change the cultural zeitgeist, the cultural thought on an issue. It's you pull a story in where there's a character who's gay. It's not a big part of the story. It's just he's gay. And you come to love this person and identify with this person and laugh when they laugh and cry when they cry. And you start finding yourself feeling really bad that they can't get a boyfriend, really bad that they can't make this relationship work. And then you stop a minute. Well, that relationship should never work. It's disordered. And so why am I hoping that this person will find a boyfriend? Why am I hoping that this person will find love? They're looking for love in a twisted relationship, in a relationship that God has never condoned or blessed. And so I shouldn't be rooting for that. I shouldn't be hoping for that. But you've been pulled so much into the story, pulled so much into the narrative that you forget what should really be going on, what this story is doing to the way you think about the way the world works and how it should work, and normalizing things that God has called disorderly or sinful. And you see that with the gay marriage movement. In the span of 10 to 15 years, you go from California making it illegal, gay marriage, and passing amendments against it, to the point where we have the Supreme Court legalizing it. And America just kind of went with it because we had had so many of the little trickle down effects of culture saying, this is okay. Why are you so worried? There's nothing bad about this. Look how nice it is. Look how normal this person is. Look how lovely this relationship is. And takes your loving of a person into loving what they do. And it's very easy to slip that line of loving the person into loving the sin. And we very easily let those things slip by us, those messages, and don't catch them and examine them and refute them. It's very easy to not realize how far you've gone until you're pretty deep in.
Yeah, and
trying to figure out how you got there or why you should get out.
I think it's one of these interesting things. Once you realize that stories are powerful things to help change people's mind, you realize just how often a story is the only reason given behind an argument for something.
Yeah.
The general way that either news is written or articles about different topics in various publications, newspapers, online, whatever it is, even like political messages and things. It's like, it's not about telling you, like, here is how we understand the principles of the matter and how we come to a conclusion about it, and come to a certainty of knowing this was right or this was wrong or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
The whole line of argumentation is, let's tell you a story about somebody that you can feel sympathetic with.
Yeah.
And obviously they're going to choose people as focal points of the story, where you being sympathetic with that person will then, as you were saying earlier, it will conflate your sympathy with them to sympathizing with the things that they do.
Yeah.
And buying into that. And so they'll choose people that have things about them that they want you to agree with, and they'll make them the sympathetic character.
Yeah.
And it's not even just a liberal versus conservative thing anymore, because this is just the default way that everybody does this now. Yeah. It used to be, back when I was in high school, I think it was a thing that we were starting to notice, where it was happening a lot more on the liberal side. Mm-hmm. And then on the conservative side, it was like, okay, here's facts, and we know this and we know that. And then it was on the liberal side, it was like all stories, and like, we need to convince people by, having sympathetic characters. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, that there is no other side. It's all just telling stories and trying to convince people based on sympathy and empathy and like buying into other people's pain. Like it not always pain, but like in some sense, it's like manipulating people, like using other people's pain to manipulate other people into being sympathetic with a position you want them to take. It all feels like, when you say it like that, it all feels very manipulative and very like usury and like taking advantage of these people. Yeah. But that's 100% what's going on.
It ties all into the whole conversation about toxic empathy. I don't know that empathy is always toxic. I know there's some people who would argue that, but it does, it is something we have to be very careful with, because in our desire to show that we care for someone, that we feel their pain, that we understand that they're in pain, we can, instead of looking over the hole and saying, how can I get you out of that? Like, can I put a ladder down? Can I put a rope down? Can we tie a rope around you and pull you up? We crawl into the hole, or just jump into the hole and don't get ourselves a way out and just sit in the hole with them. That's not helping us. That's not helping them. We might feel what they're feeling, but we've done nothing to solve a problem. We've done nothing to refute the lies they might be believing in their hole. There might be a ladder in the hole already, and they've just decided that ladder's unclimbable. Like, it's impossible. So we just
It
sit
was
with
put
them.
here by the wrong person, so I don't want to climb it.
We just sit with them and say, yeah, you're probably right. We should just sit down in this hole and ignore the help that's been given, or ignore the truth about the way out of the hole. And we're just going to sit here and I'll feel all the feelings with you. And I, as a person who naturally has maybe more empathy than I would like I feel the feels. I cry with the criers. I do feel with people very strongly, but, that's got to be kept in check, in biblical check, because if you're feeling the feels with somebody who is in sin at the moment, and that is why they're going through this struggle, then you really need to take the empathy and replace it with true help. And it's like, well, I can understand that you're going through this because of this thing that you've done that's wrong, but I can't sit here and wallow with you, because that would also be sin.
And also things are always more complicated than we want them to be.
Yes.
And so we want to have neat categories of saying, you can be sympathetic, but you can't be empathetic, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we come up with these categories of what things are.
Black and white
but
is easier.
At the end of the day, though, more often than not, it's better to think about dealing with a person. And like, we're not loving people in the abstract. We love specific people. Like, we don't have the ability to sit here and love, 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
But we do have the ability to sit across from specific people and love them.
Yeah.
And so,
and be truly empathetic
and be
truly sympathetic.
Well, and to be engaged with them, like, regardless of whether you want to use the sympathetic or empathetic words.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just be engaged as people.
Yeah.
You may be in sin, and that may be why you're facing what you're facing. And so I, as another person, will sit across from you, and I'll feel things with you because we're people and I'm relating to you, and it is my job as part of this to help steer you to the truth, to point you to the way of righteousness, to show you your need. And like, but it happens. I don't know. I feel like there's a sense where we end up getting a little bit too clinical in like trying to figure out, and maybe this comes out of all the like, what's the word I'm looking for? Psychoanalysis or psychotherapy or whatever it is. But there's this desire to put specific terms to specific things in human social interactions.
Yeah.
Which, maybe there's some value in some of that.
Categories can be helpful.
And it can be helpful for certain things. But when you're actually just sitting down with somebody to talk to them, like, there's a way of dealing with people that you're with that allows you to navigate a conversation with patience and with grace, and to hear them out and to demonstrate a level of understanding on your part and a grasping of what's going on in this person's life. And there is a right place for weeping with those who weep and rejoicing with those who rejoice.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. Even when somebody is facing a consequence of their sin,
Yeah.
we can even in that,
Yeah, still
we
weep
can
with
still
them.
feel, we can still feel that pain that they're going through, and not try to like, well, but you did the wrong thing, and so therefore, like, and come off all snobbish. Like, we're talking with people.
Yeah.
And I think it helps so much to put a real person in front of you and say, like, here is a person, and I'm going to talk to them,
Yeah.
and we're going to figure things out, or sort through things, or have a conversation, whatever it is. There's probably some use for the abstract, because being able to talk about, like, what would I say in a situation where some such and such arises?
Yeah.
Like, there is some help to be had in like pre-analyzing a situation so that you're not caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I think it's helpful to not go too much in that direction of trying to figure out what's the perfect response for everything that comes up, because you're going to seem like a robot or something who's working through a flow chart.
Yeah.
When you're talking to them. It's like, well, did you say this? Okay, now over to here. And then, okay, they responded. Okay, now we're going over here. And so I don't know. And maybe people are better at it than I am, but I feel like the conversation ends up getting very muddled when we're trying to use generic like catch-all rules for how to deal with people, when everybody that we talk to is unique.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to guard even harder against that toxic form of empathy when you're one-on-one with somebody, because it's harder to say hard truths to an individual in some ways. If you're just spouting off in generalities, it's a little more comfy than if you're looking somebody right in the eye and saying, you're sinning and you need to not.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, looking somebody in the eye and saying you're sinning, like, it's not a you're sinning and you are the problem. As like, well, yes, they are sinning and they are kind of the problem, but there's a level of like dealing with people with tact and grace, and it's not a manipulative ploy, but it is an understanding of how to talk to people, and just being like, here's the situation, and laying out the truth of, like, God has called us to be a people who are holy and who abstain from, sexual immorality. And, this is flying in direct contradiction to that. You're still calling someone on the carpet for something. You're saying a hard truth to them, but you're not just pointing the finger and saying you're sinning, but you're leading them through a reshifting of focus and a reprioritization in a much more human way than I don't know. I guess I'm not exactly sure. I'm probably not.
I feel like I'm not following you very well.
Yeah, I'm probably not articulating it very well. But there's I don't know. I have this general feeling of like, we tend to overanalyze some of these things, and we just need to be people with other people, I think.